This video was brought to you by Patreon. Hey you, how's it going? My name is Ruby Price and welcome to 2021. Now I'm sorry to break it to you, but this year is probably going to remain how 2020 finished. At least for a while, because it seems as though the leaders of each major player in the stakes of how the world is run doesn't seem to know what they're doing. So now that I've told you everything that you should already know, let's crack on with today's video. So at the start of 2020, I decided that I would react to 2019's goals and set myself some goals for 2020. Obviously, I didn't know what was going to happen during 2020 at the time, otherwise I would have probably put on several wagers. I thought it would still be an interesting video to look back on the goals and then set myself goals for 2021. How realistic they are obviously depends on how quickly this country and the countries around it start dealing with COVID properly. So let's start off looking at my goals for 2020 with the help of me from 12 months ago. The main goal for 2020 is to resume facial hair removal. Sadly, that one didn't happen. I was kind of expecting, the momentum that had started happening at the end of 2019, I thought was going to continue into 2020. Sadly, it stopped about March. But I would like to think that had the year continued as it was supposed to in my eyes, I would have actually gone for facial hair removal again. I would have obviously relied on me getting some form of employment. Spoilers for the rest of this video. It would have been nice, and sadly that just wasn't something that happened. 2020, I'd quite like to graduate my masters. Now this one I actually did. I graduated with a distinction, and I am really, really happy with that. There were points during January and February where I honestly considered dropping out of my masters because of how much of a toll it was taking on me, just to try and perform at the level that you need to pull off a masters. And it was ironic, the second term is also when I started doing better. So clearly you need to sacrifice your mental health. You really don't. I haven't had a graduation ceremony yet, and that's kind of sad. I would like an official graduation ceremony, but who knows what's going to happen. Maybe by the time that this year's over, there will have been a graduation ceremony. Something I'd quite like to do in 2020 is go veggie or vegan. This is another one that I did. I did Veganuary last year, got about halfway through and was like, this is not that hard to implement into my diet now. I've already gone 2 weeks of being fully vegan. What could go wrong? And yeah, I am enjoying food a lot more. I'm actually making proper cooked dishes, The other night I made a bolognese. I made a vegan bolognese from scratch, including making the sauce. I've never done that before. In 2020, I'd quite like to get a job or go full-time as a freelancer. As I said, this one didn't happen. Sadly, I would like to think that given my skill set and the fact that I now have an extra qualification, had COVID not been a thing, I would have ideally just been able to walk into a job having graduated with a master's degree. That was obviously the reason as to why I went back to uni, was to be more employable. But yeah, now I'm on universal credit. Oh, there's so many exclamation marks after this one. Move out. Well, as you can tell by the background, and if you've been paying any attention to my life for the last 6 months, I did move out, and I am really, really happy about that. I'm a big Harry Potter fan, J.K. Rowling's political beliefs aside, and one of the biggest challenges that can entail is a 20-hour marathon. J.K. Rowling's a turf. What? That was known when I planned to do that this year anyway. I have all the Harry Potter movies already on DVD. I wouldn't have needed to give any further money to J.K. Rowling to watch the Harry Potter movies. The same for reading them, but it never happened. It's obviously something that requires a lot of investment and time because of how many movies there are and how long it is in total. There's 8 movies to watch. It's nearly 24 hours. But who knows, maybe it's something I could do this year, and maybe it's something that I could try and twist into a way of raising money for trans charities. Who knows? to reach 25 episodes of Fresh from the Scene. I fell at the final hurdle for this one. When the first lockdown was announced, I lost access to the studios that I was recording my podcast in, so therefore I couldn't exactly just go into uni and record face to face with people. So I did really panic about what I was going to do going forwards. I spent a very long time just not addressing it because I was kind of in denial about it. Now obviously that I've graduated, I don't have access to those studios anymore, but I've got a much better setup here for podcasting, and I have spoken to a lot of people since then. The problem is, since it's a music podcast and there's not that many, live music events going on, there's not that much to talk about. Everyone's sick of hearing, oh, so how are you dealing with COVID as a musician? And yeah, quite rightly so. I did get very close though. Very close. If you haven't listened to Fresh from the Scene, it is available on pretty much every podcast platform. And there's a link in the description. Please go listen. I've spoken to some really cool people. So, those were my goals for 2020. Now, let's talk about my goals for 2021. It goes without saying, but get a job and or take Ruubez Media full time. I'm on universal credit. It's depressing, it's demoralising, and I hate every single minute of it. I want to be employed, or self-employed if the opportunity, arises. Finish writing my book. If you know me, you know that I've been writing a book about my transition since 2017. It's obviously taken a few delays due to, motivation or just not having the time, but I feel like this is the time that I can sit down and just write, and I can try and finish it, get it out, not even necessarily get it out, just get it finished so that I can say that I've written a book. It's something that I've always wanted to do since I was very young. I used to write little short stories and read them in school. I was such a fucking nerd. A book about my transition and how things have happened and the thought processes that were going on. It's a lot more than I can just do in a video. And also it might help someone. Even if that person is myself. It's a bit general, but make more reviews. Obviously I've got my YouTube series Ruubez Reviews, but I don't input that often enough. It's something that I get out every now and then when I've got so many thoughts, but really, as a journalist, that should be where I'm spewing my thoughts, no matter how big or small they are. I've reviewed McFly's recent album, I've ranked discographies, I've reviewed Fantastic Beasts, screenwriting's not for everybody. That was a whirlwind. Yes, they don't necessarily get that many views, but maybe that's because I don't do enough of them. Again, another vague one, but work on my fitness. I'm not saying, get buff and get, what society views as, the perfect body. I'm saying I can't run up the 2 flights of stairs in my house without getting out of breath. And that's not fun. Even if it just means going outside and going for walks a lot more, which is something that I used to do pre-lockdown, funnily enough. I just want to be able to do simple tasks and not get out of breath anymore. And maybe also lose a little bit of the chub that I developed by doing nothing but sitting on a bed for 6 months. And number 5, release more videos. Not including a week ago or Vlogmas, I released 13 videos in 2020. 13. To me, that's not good enough. Don't get me wrong, I love Vlogmas, I love a week ago, but the videos that I enjoy doing the most are these kind of videos where I'm stood here talking to a camera or, playing music or doing something creative. And yes, a week ago in Vlogmas gave me the opportunity to do that, but especially this year, it's not exactly like I've been going anywhere. Unofficially, I'm setting myself the goal of making 26 videos across this year, purely because that then makes it on average 2 videos a month. Yeah, I think that's good. So before I go, just a couple of unofficial goals as well. Maybe acquire a gender recognition certificate. I didn't want to apply for one previously because, it looked like the system was going to change and it was going to become free for a start, but with the current government in place, who don't seem to give a shit about trans people other than the fact that maybe they're going to sneak into a changing room and attack a woman, which, tell me where that's happened. I would, however, like to just not have to worry about it anymore, particularly in the future, because, wow. Resume facial hair removal, again as I mentioned, you know, something that I wanted to do last year but never quite got the opportunity to do. So just resuming it, you know, even if it's just a couple of sessions near the end of the year to then do in 2022, you know, just getting that ball rolling again, because that's what stopped it in the first place. And finally, listen to more new music. The last episode of Fresh from the Scene that I released in 2020 was mine and my friend Chaz's top albums and songs of the year. I struggled to put together 5 albums because I'd mostly just listened to comfort music, because, you know, 2020 was a year of feeling like you needed to be comforted. You know, when it came to summing up 5 albums of the year, I included an album that probably shouldn't have even been on that list, because I listened to about 6 or 7 records that year. New records, I should mention. So those are my goals for 2021. Have you got any goals that you've set for this year? Let me know in the comments below. It'd be really cool to see. Maybe we can encourage each other to, you know, follow our goals as well. If you did enjoy that video, do all that generic YouTube stuff, like, share, comment, subscribe, etc, etc. I have a Patreon if you would like to support me further. It, you know, has certainly at least helped to pay for my prescriptions for the last couple of years. It's been rough. I certainly would have been in some real financial trouble if I hadn't have had Patreon in 2020, so yeah, that's a good place to go. As always, I've been Ruby Price, and I'll see you next time. Adios. Bye.